All right, so welcome to the session, and I'm going to talk about the AI adoption, how things are transforming in year 2026. But before going there, let me introduce myself. I'm Vineet, and I'm working with Zero Code Technology and Research. I'm responsible for the strategy of the company. What we do, we are into AI adoption training, help industry to really understand the nitty-gritties about AI challenges in adoption, and we guide them towards successful adoption of it. So that's what we do. Now, in today's session, this is a session for in the entire series of the program, wherein we are looking at how different stage of AI journey can be impacted with better framework, learning from the industry, peer reviews, mentoring, and so on and so forth. Now, before we really go deeper into the subject, let us just first look at some of those numbers which are quite striking for us to take note of. One thing is certain, the AI in 2026 has gone beyond the experimentation, which was the trend up till some quarters, some months ago. It has certainly gone into beyond experiment stage. And today, if you look at the overall expenditure, the budgeting which is being done by the companies across the globe is actually increasing by 35% year on year. What it means, if a company spent $100 last year, is spending $130 this year. Now that's a massive appreciation of resources which are getting into the AI. Also, there is something which is very heartening to see. More than 70% of those companies are actually adopting AI in one way or other. At least one application is getting adopted. And that's a very big number when we look at the scale of the subject. And something which is even more familiar, and I think all of us will be quite familiar with that when we talk about the generative AI, the one which we talk about, ChatGPT, the Gemini, and so on and so forth, we have 65% of those companies which have adopted generative AI in their application. Now, that's almost the double the adoption 2 years ago, what it used to be. Now, these are extremely motivating number and also gives us a very clear direction what is happening in this particular space. So, when we are talking about these numbers, one thing which we need to also appreciate that in any organization today, what is being talked at the management level, at the level of board, what people are talking, what they are discussing, what they are really looking to figure out. What they are looking to do is figure out which are the areas where we can get some kind of a measurement of the business value. Now, the business value is something which requires certain discussion, certain thoughts, and we will go about discussing into that as well. But that's one area where most of these management are actually looking to figure out which AI project to pick up, which will be possible to measure the business value of it. And second, which are the areas which we can avoid? In the sense, if we invest into it, we possibly will not get success. Chances of getting any kind of return is much lesser. So how to avoid? What is the framework for it? And lastly, how to go about building ourselves so that we can make all this happen. Now, these are the kind of questions which are there in the minds of the management, the leadership, and of course the investors, right? Now, naturally, when we look at these numbers, something which makes us believe that world is actually going to explode with AI, which is certainly going to be the case, is always a guess how fast it can happen. So when we look at these numbers, things suddenly look extremely alarming that looks like I am lagging, right? But then when we look at what exactly is happening with these kind of adoption, what is the outcome of these adoption, then stories start looking a little bit grim. If you look at out of all these companies, the 80% of these companies are actually struggling to figure out how to retrieve the business value from it. Now, that's something which is quite a risky uh, area to look into. If I am not able to extract any business value from my AI adoption, then how long it can sustain, right? The another thing which is also not very encouraging is 95% of these companies are actually finding very difficult to figure out what they can measure in terms of profit or maybe loss, right? How to measure that? That itself is becoming quite a challenge when we talk about generative AI. And I think if we start thinking around all this, take an example. I'm using generative AI for building the presentation, and most of you will be doing it. Now think for the moment, if I'm building the presentation using generative AI, and that's a very popular application, how I'm going to measure how much profit I made from this? Now that's something which is actually is happening with most of these adoptions. And that's where the numbers of 95% is no surprise. But the sad news which we look at is almost half of these companies are actually shelving these projects, most of these initiatives up almost double, more than double from last year. That means people started with a lot of excitement, invested, suddenly something gone wrong, and then naturally they started shelving. And most of these projects started getting shelved. Now that's something which is concerning for everyone, not just for investor, also for professionals and all those enthusiasts who are looking up to the AI space. So the question really comes up, why this happens? I just gave you the example of I build a presentation using a generative AI application, but then how does it help to earn a profit? Can I measure, leave aside earning the profit? Can I measure what is the impact of it, right? Now that's fundamentally is the gap. What is happening in more than 80% of these failures? That means 80 out of 100 initiatives are actually having this gap, which is causing the failure. So where the root cause is? Root cause is not technical. Technology is getting stabilized by the day. It's very promising. Fundamentally, it has all those nuts and bolts to get the outcome from it. So technology is not the issue. The issue is how we go about taking it forward. So one of the prime area which is really needs addressing, and I think all of us need to really connect with that, is in all these failure cases, the business problem had not been defined very clearly. Now, what is the business problem? Let me give a couple of examples. I'm having a challenge in making a winning proposal for my customer. As a prospect, I need to make a winning proposal. If I make the winning proposal, chances of me acquiring the customer becomes very high. Now, that means if I'm using AI to help me make a winning proposal, then naturally that will have a direct impact on my business value. And that is where the problem is. These adoptions are not starting from this kind of a business problem. This is just one example I gave. Most of us work with customers. If not, we possibly work in the product team to come out with new ideas, maybe come out with some new costing for the product. Now, all those are real business problems. If I'm looking to figure out addressing these problems using AI, yes, but that's not the case right now. Second in comes is somewhere the ownership of those initiatives has to be undertaken by the management. That look, I believe in the technology. I think this is what we can do. This is where we can be away from those risky projects. This is what we look to invest and see what we can do best. Now, that kind of a conviction is possibly missing in most of these places. And naturally, if we do not have the right business problem, having any kind of metrics to measure in numbers, naturally that will also be difficult to get. Now, this is one set of the problem which is associated with the business problem. The other side of the problem is more practical. Maybe first we can very well deal with it, right? Because this is something to do with all of you as a decision maker, and say, look, in my organization, I am responsible for my team or for my business. Maybe I will take care of all of it. Now, the second set is even more challenging because it is something to do with the culture of your team, of the organization. Now, what is happening here when we talk about culture, the manner in which I am working, manner in which I am recording the events, the manner in which I am saving all those information, the data, possibly that's not the best way to be done. Now, that requires a change in working, right? Now, the change in working means my processes have to be accordingly looked into. We also need to look at the mindset of the people, how they look toward the process. And the people who are going to lead the entire team, the people leadership becomes very important because then they need to be giving that kind of a confidence that we are doing something for the betterment of our own processes, right? So the people leadership becomes critical. That means the change management is another area which is related to the culture, takes a very strong role into it. And the last, not the least, and we'll talk more about it as we go along, is somewhere the technology first thinking has to be updated to the extent where the business comes first, technology comes later. What is happening in general, algorithm, the tools, these things are coming in the mind first, in general, of all the people, rest of it comes. That means it calls for changing the mindset. So if you look at the first set of the problem, it deals with how we can zero down on the right problem, give our own commitment based on our feasibility. But the second one is more to do with the team, with the people and the mindset. And that's something which requires good amount of planning and the initiative. So this is the fundamental reason why, although technology is real, the adoption is going through this kind of a churn.
So, Vineet, we have some poll results come in along the same lines, right? But what people think why AI projects usually fail. And 50% responses are pointing towards organizations picking the wrong problem, and then 20% weightage for technology maturity and
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's a good breakup. I mean, 50% because of
yeah,
business problem,
dual
50%
data.
technology, and with how many are remaining one?
The 2020 for poor data and technology maturity.
Sure, sure. So that certainly is in line with what's happening around the world, and this is also a sign that we are pretty well connecting the problem with our own findings, right? So that's something which we will talk more as we go along. Now, what is it that we are talking about here? We are talking about, one is the approach towards recognizing the problem and then approaching it with right tools and techniques. And the other is all about mindset, the culture of the team. But if you really look at how does AI becoming successful in wherever limited area we are seeing, is it is becoming a horizontal capability. Now, what do I mean by horizontal capability? I will talk more about it. But then there are success areas. For example, in technology sectors, IT companies, ITES companies, e-commerce, 94% adoption has happened actually so far. And so is not surprisingly the banks, the insurance, the financial sector, we are hitting almost 90% of it. And the real positive, strong silver lining is, and that's something which is very close to many people's heart, is the manufacturing is actually adopting at much faster rate, as much as they're talking about 7 times faster than the earlier time. So that's something which is quite a striking thing in year 2026. Now, with these things, how it is actually getting adopted is because the AI is being used as a horizontal capability. Now, what is the horizontal capability? So, for example, these are my functions. Now, if I look at any of these functions and look at the right problem, then these functions are actually there in all the organization. whether it is finance or banking or manufacturing or anything else. Now, if we look at the applications, which are the popular application where the value is getting created? In sales, people are looking at qualifying their leads, building the pipeline, getting more intelligence about their prospective customers, and so on and so forth. In HR, people are looking to see how they can make their entire onboarding process more efficient, talent hunt, talent searching, even the interview process, how they can speed up. That's what is HR is really looking to do, and they are finding success. In finance, of course, reporting on any kind of fraud, forecasting on cash, those kind of areas are important. Procurement, manufacturing, all of these are functions where any organization you pick up, these are going. So that means if the kind of use cases, the application which are looking towards these areas, chances are more that it will be utilized with real outcome. And that is what is happening. And that's what we mean by it is a horizontal ability, which is now going into different organizations' processes. So now, if we look deeper into it, where actually the business value is getting created, for what kind of applications, the real business value, and that's something which can be a good cue for all of us to start thinking in the direction of innovating our own process, innovating our own applications using AI. So what is it about decision intelligence? So the people in mid-management, senior management, they are having something to do with reporting, something which they are going to talk about how much business they will do. If they are managing the project, then they are going to talk about how fast they can finish, what is the likely quality issues which they can expect. If people are on the sales side or working closely with the marketing, then they are always looking into what my pricing is going to be. Can I look at some kind of a model, business model? So those are the kind of intelligence which is being done at different level in the operations as well as in the business sales side. Now, that's where the decision making is getting benefited using these technologies and the use cases. The second one is where people have successfully adopted is about knowledge intelligence. All organizations have loads of information, the experience in respective businesses. How that can become a good focal point to disperse the knowledge to the people so that overall efficiency goes up, right? So the systems which are getting in place is bringing all knowledge into the one secure environment within the organization and using the technique of AI to start dispersing the knowledge on demand. And that's something which is quite powerful, quite successful by many companies. Process automation. There are certain use cases, for example, email triage and approval workflow. It possibly can give an incremental benefit, but there are certain use cases like invoice processing can actually become quite quite an impact on the numbers itself. For example, invoice processing, if it is not done in a more reliable manner, it can lead to loss of money or maybe even delays in receiving and making the payment. Now, those things directly affect the revenue. So process automation certainly is top area to look into. AI assistant, and that's what I think most of us, whether we use Microsoft Copilots or any other Copilots or Chat GPTs, that is where most of us are using AI as an assistant. That means it is helping me to write emails, make a summary of the document, and so on and so forth. Question remains how much we can extract the business value. Yes, it can be, depending upon how we come about the use cases. And in this line, if we look at, it is a very small part of the business value which is getting made right now at least. But the AI agents, which is actually starting to make quite an inroad when we talk about innovation onto the enterprises, as well as adoption by companies. So autonomous AI agent is becoming another thing. Now, the thing which is also coming out, the companies which are actually building up these agents, they are able to see significant amount of ROI on that, provided we go through the right flow. The another important point to keep in the discussion is when we talk about ROI, it will vary. Some projects can yield you benefit much faster and some may take much longer. What has been found by the surveys, by the Gartners, that as much as 14 months can be seen as a median number, wherein you can figure out what would be the return expected in terms of revenue. Now, this is where the stories start becoming very interesting. Of course, to get inspired, who are the people, who are the companies actually who are making most of it? So, for example, the JP Morgan, they came out with their own SLM, if we can call that. They started using it by hundreds and thousands of people. Contract agreement creation, the reviews, that is something they heavily used. So the coin, what you see here is basically contract intelligence, because they deal with hundreds and thousands of customers. How we can deal with those contracts, the issues, it has to be reviewed multiple times by different people. That is where they came out with this approach, and they actually started making a lot of savings in their expenditure. Microsoft, we all know, Copilot being used by almost everybody who is having a license of Microsoft, they use it. Walmart, in their planning, supply chain, forecasting, their inventory and those stuff, Walmart is using. Siemens is doing slightly different work. They are more towards how it can be utilized on the shop floor, more in the industrial AI side of it. That's where a lot of success is being seen in Siemens. In the energy side, Schneider Electric is one of the company which made a lot of inroads by making the outcome, tangible outcome using AI. Unilever is actually working towards making a forecast on the inventory, reducing waste. That's something which Unilever has actually adopted quite well. On the drug discovery and the knowledge intelligence of all the R&D work, regulatory related work, Pfizer has adopted it successfully. And Amazon, as we all know, has always been the leading company in these technologies, and all their supposedly most of their warehouses are autonomously managed by these robotics. So that is something which is you can look at some of these areas where large organizations have done, and this can be an inspiration for many smaller organizations who either work in their ecosystem or maybe they work in the similar areas. They can look to get inspired and build the applications around it. Now, one common thing which is coming in all of these is they look at the problem first, and based on those problems, they continue to build upon the AI system. So that's something which is coming out very commonly. That again reinforces the point that we must look at the business problem to begin with and then go towards next step. So the real big question comes, if that is what we are emphasizing so much about identifying the right opportunity, finding the right business problem, then how do we go about doing that? So we can use some kind of a framework. So for example, in our own work, if we are doing certain task, which is naturally critical for my business, that means there is some kind of a decision making or a approval has to happen. So just to take an example, I'm the one responsible for closing deals with the customers, right? I'm the one who is working with my sales team, my costing team, my production team, planning, and now I need to close a deal, right? Now, when these deals are going on, possibly a request has come for some kind of a reduction in the price, right? Now, this is the decision making on the behalf of the manager or the business head, and say, look, now what can be done, because this is what would help us to close the deal. Now, that might be a bottleneck for many businesses because he need to secure inputs in the real time as quickly as possible and make a decision. Now, these are the kind of decision making can delay the whole process. Similarly, a customer support manager, a customer success manager, escalation has happened, but then the escalation has not reached to the right level, and then delays have occurred, essentially losing a customer, right? Similarly, in a project management, there are issues, some risk has been raised, but it has not been addressed in time. And possibly that's where the decision making could not take place. Now, these are the kind of things which are fundamentally very powerful opportunity where why not look at AI, right? So these are the guidelines which can be used as areas to actively look out for AI opportunity. What is the next area which possibly can give us a hint? Okay, possibly this is the area. So that is on the workforce. So some work which is being done repetitively. So one of the example can be seen as somebody comes, opens the Excel sheet, fetches some number, puts into some application, it churns out some report, and then is sent out to the management. Now, this is a work which is a repetitive, every day it happens. Or on the shop floor, there is a person who is constantly picking up a piece, checking it, putting it there, picking. Now, this is a repetitive work. And hopefully that work can be done by a machine. That's what AI. Then the person who is doing this work is a high skilled guy because he's possibly looking at something from quality perspective, can be freed up to do something more important, right? Because the machine is helping him do this. So that's the kind of area which can be seen as the efficiency improvement area. Third thing is, many times in similar situations, different decisions are taken by different teams. So, for example, again on the business front or even on the engineering front, there are different offices, different teams working in different cities. Now, how can we get some kind of a knowledge sharing? How can we get some kind of consistency in the approach to the work? Now, that kind of consistency, if needed and it's not there, then it becomes a candidate for AI. Many times there are some bottlenecks because of the skill, the knowledge. So, for example, if you look at on the shop floor, what we see is a person is there, is standing. He's monitoring the machine. Now the shift has changed. A new guy will come set up the machine. If he does not turn up in time, you lose the time, right? No operation, losing the time means losing the production, losing the revenue. Now, those are the areas can give us the hint that look at to automate this. Look at how we can bring AI into it. So that's another way to look at. In a other industry, say for example, banking, we have scenarios where there is application for some kind of investment or loan has been made, has been under process. Now there are multiple people who are looking into it because the loan ask is quite big. A lot of risk has to be assessed and all that. Now there happen to be some domain knowledge required for assessing that application, but the person is not there, the one who carries that domain knowledge, so that he can give his assessment, he can then approve the loan by the bank and so on and so forth. Now, for some reason, that is the bottleneck, and then naturally we delay the whole process and possibly even lose the opportunity to give loan to a particular party. Now, these are the areas where the knowledge flow is getting bottlenecked, getting stalled. That's an area where AI can become a very useful tool. Customer experience, customer is directly affecting our business. That's why we are into the business. If in any way we realize that the experience is getting broken, then we must look at that, because that's the success story which has been seen in several areas. So that's one area, certainly, but is the area to look at because it directly affect the business what we are in. Forecast accuracy, although it is not a very common application yet deployed in many companies, only few have done, but these are the areas where we know we as a business owner or as a business head, as a director of the company, I need to look into the future. There is no two ways about it. Now, when I'm looking into the future and then making some decision today about how many product to make, how much area in the warehouse I should keep, I like it or not, I need to do some forecast, right? And based on that, I will be incurring cost, I will be incurring some resources. In those situations, AI can be quite a helpful thing. And this is one of the perennial problem where we are loaded with a lot of information, some in paper, some in documents, digital document, and is all into different places, different sources. That's a classic problem. Why not do something with AI? So if you really look at what can be the thumb rule for us, because this is one of the area which actually is a study, and you will see as we go along how problem identification is becoming the real problem, is because the approach to identify the problem and innovate in our enterprises is because we are not going through a framework. Now, this can be utilized as a framework. Anytime when we feel our decision speed is slow, or we believe workforce is not efficient, or I'm not making consistent decisions, I'm lacking in the information flow, my customer experience is getting broken, uh, I'm looking into the future, but I'm not able to look at with great uh, accuracy, or I'm surrounded with so much of information, I'm not able to process all that. And I think these are the areas which classic cases for opportunity for AI. So the thing which is being driven from here is look at the AI opportunity anytime when we talk about our everyday problem in our responsibility, and we will be able to get to some answer for that. So what is the evaluation framework? I just mentioned about a couple of points as a thumb rule, and I'm sure that would be very helpful for people to identify the AI use cases. But what is the framework? Once we identify, what is the framework to evaluate whether to go for it or not, right? So there is 6-dimension scale, 5-dimension scale, which we can look at across 6 dimensions, right? Now, what are the 6 dimensions? One is the business value. We should ask ourselves, will it make an impact on the revenue or on the cost saving? Or will it reduce some risk to my business, right? That question, if we ask this question, we'll get the answer. So we must ask. That is one dimension. Then we should look at another dimension. Is it really possible to implement? Take an example. I came out with some fantastic use case. But then when we start thinking of feasibility, I realized that I need to have a sensors to collect the data. But those sensors are either very expensive or they are just not readily available. I need to possibly import. That means although everything is fantastic, but feasibility is very less, right? So that's very important dimension to look at it. What is the technical complexity? What is the integration approach and effort towards it? The third dimension is data readiness. How good we have the data in terms of his readiness, his preparation, his quality. That's the third dimension to look at. How is my management committed towards it? I'm the management, how I'm committing. If I have the management, how they are committing. That is also a very powerful, important dimension to bring into my framework, right? So that's the executive sponsorship. The fourth, we talk about risk. If this particular application we use with AI, is it a possibility that we might miss out on some regulatory compliances? Or it might lead to some kind of ethical issues? Is it a possibility if I use this use case and tomorrow it might become my issue on the brand? For example, look at airline. Suppose airline is using a AI application to forecast the price, right? Dynamic price. And for some reason, the risk is occurred. The pricing has not become consistent with what it should be. In some situation, we possibly could not get the right pricing at that moment. It started looking a ridiculous price. Suddenly, what would happen? The customers will look at the airline in a bad light and say, look, they are doing something which is not transparent, right? So that means is a reputation. Your reputation is at stake. So that's the kind of risk. So are we looking at a use case which is exposed to this kind of a risk? We can ask this question. And then, of course, time to value. There are some organizations we can wait 3 years after investing. There are organizations which they believe anything beyond 6 months is not feasible. So from your own appetite, assign certain time to value in the sense I decide, I go for it when I realize the value from the AI. We can ask the question. If we ask these questions on the 6 dimensions on the scale of 1 to 5. So if my particular answer is going to be very high, then I need to assign 5. So for example, I say, look, the revenue impact is very, very good. I think if I can implement this application, my revenue will certainly increase, right? So I will say very good, high, five number. But you say, look, all this is good. I don't think revenue will be impacting. Rarely it may happen. So maybe you call it as 1, right? Similarly, my application has a risk which can impact the ethics. If it goes wrong, the ethical issues can become quite serious, and that risk is there, and that risk is also very high. Then maybe we can put number 4 or 5, right? But I believe no, this is all fine. I don't think there is any ethical issue. Maybe we can keep it just as 1, right? So that's how we will assign for these 6 dimensions certain value based on what answer we give for these questions. And then just apply this framework, which is very commonly used by Gartners and McKinsey's. If the value is high, I'm just taking an illustration. If value is high, high value means 5, high feasibility means 5, low risk means 1, is a perfect candidate for taking up the project. And that's what we call as quick win. High value, high feasibility, low risk. If you assign these numbers, you will get some. So this is something very, very powerful framework, which can be utilized to put your application on a scale and say, look, this is something which is a quick win. This is something which is going to be long shot. Accordingly, make a decision. Now let's look at some of those practical examples which can be quite useful for us to get inspired. In manufacturing, the quality inspection, a lot of AI techniques like computer vision are being used. Predictive maintenance, you might have heard about it. In scheduling, my planning, my production, all that. Supply chain, in forecasting, how much inventory to keep, how much procurement to happen. Can I really optimize the performance of my supplier? Can I really look at the logistics and get some better, faster supplies of my raw material? No, or even the supplies to my customer. Those are all the areas which are actively possible to look at. These are being looked at. In finance, automation of invoice processing, I mentioned, that's a very commonly discussed problem. People do talk, people do implement in finance as being done widely. Fraud detection is certainly one of those areas. Looking into my cash flow, what I can expect 6 months, 8 months down the line, right, in terms of my cash reserve. That's an area to look at. And of course, the reporting. In the sales, yes, looking into your leads, how I can get my approach to prospects more efficient. How can I make a winning proposal? Can I get better insight about my customer if I can do the segmentation? If I create a proposal which is likely to be a winnable proposal, then what elements are missing? I can take help of AI. And then, of course, many times we need help as a sales. We need help from my back-end team to close the deal. So the co-pilots can help us, right? So these are the practical examples which we have in the industry.
So, Vineet, we have the results of the second poll. What's the biggest barrier preventing AI adoption in your organization? So, the answers are pretty varied. The topmost, what people have voted, 30% is skills and talent. And the next close one is data quality and availability. Other ones, the lack of clear business use case, the budget and leadership buy-in, kind of 10 to 15% thing. So it's kind of probably case by case or organization by organization, or the perspective, each one's perspective on what the biggest barrier is. So there's no very clear cut top answer here.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any right or wrong option here. but it's all about what we believe, what we felt, what we faced with. And I think if we look at the problems which are told by people, data readiness or the skill lacking, all of it are there. It's just that sometimes some percentage in some companies is lesser, in some companies is more. But at the heart of it, we need to look at where the success probability is very high, is if we start with the right problem, look at the right feasibility of it, use the framework, which I shared, use that framework to know I go into it, chances of me getting success is higher. If we go through that, the overall probability will go higher.
Yeah.
All right. Here another buzzword, which is certainly making a lot of changes across the industry, is agentic AI. So typically, if you look at how a AI system works, there is some input. It does some processing on the input data, maybe prediction, gives the output, and then there is a man or human in the loop. He works on it and take the further action on that, right? Now, what agentic AI does? It actually just close the entire loop. So if you look at from input, prediction, output to human action, now it is getting into using a tool. So it gets into the tool usage. Of course, it has to execute this entire AI solution, which has been put into the system. And then whatever findings are, because the AI system will have some inequalities, it will pick up that inequality, feed back into the system, and will constantly keep learning. So this is what the agentic AI is. So if you see the difference between the two, the execution and the learning is happening in autonomous manner, whereas in the traditional system, it is being managed by the human in loop. Now, depending upon the use case, the application, the impact on the business, the cost of risk in case it occurs, managements take a decision whether to go for full-fledged agentic AI architecture to begin with, or they can go with the solution of AI using traditional architecture, work with human in loop. And as the confidence build into the system, then they can complete the autonomous nature of the AI, making it agentic AI. So that's the strategic call, use case to use case, that call can be taken. Now, where these agentic AI so far are much in use, and this can give us another cue to start thinking what we can pick up. So in the support agent, a lot of support contact centers are there where people work with the customer issues. They create issues into the ticketing, what they create, route it to the right people. That's where the agent can be very, very powerful. Procurement agent, there are certain things which are always coming with the right specification, no complexities in the specification of the procurement. Prices are pretty much stabilized. Agent can be monitoring. Agent can be monitoring when the replenishment should happen, and then it can keep making the orders, purchase orders at the right time, so that there is never ever going to be slowdown in my work. So that's something procurement agent can do very well, being done today. Finance, as we talked about, invoice processing, because most of the process in invoice processing happens in a very sequential manner. It goes through a very standard process that can well be taken up for the agent. Compliance, because we need to be in complying with authorities, the regulatory policies and everything. We can create that, and then the agent can give the alerts to us at the right time when it needed. That would be another good way to look at building an agent. And the customer support agent, which is, of course, we all just talked about it several times in this session. So these are the areas where agentic use cases are popular. People are making use of it. We can certainly think of it in a big way. In fact, quite a big number of companies, more than 60% companies, are actually building up these agents. They are doing a lot of experiment, and they are looking into these areas. Now, if I look at what's happening with the remaining ones, they are still beyond pilot. They are more looking into how I can take into the deployment. But almost all the companies who are excited and who are taking the AI forward, they are actually working through this agentic AI. So where does it lead us as the senior managers, as we are looking to get into this journey of AI? Where we should head to, right? We should be looking at ourselves not to become an AI engineers, rather how I can extract business value from this, my entire AI technology, right? That's where the things happen. Now, in general, 48% companies are redesigning the workflows, right? Now, what is the redefinition of the workflow? That is where the executive play a role, because this is all about process. If you look at what are the top competencies which today a executive, a AI leader has to have, and that's where he has to spend time in building up himself. One is how to identify the opportunity. We talked about some of those thumb rules, like decision where it is getting delayed, my customer friction is happening, repetitive task is happening, so on and so forth. Those are the thumb rule. And then there's another framework where you had the feasibility on a score of 6 dimensions, right? On those 6 different dimensions, on revenue impact, on the risk, on the time to realize value, those 6 dimensions on a scale of 1 to 5, all those things actually are part and parcel of AI opportunity identifier. How I can identify the AI opportunity. That's one top skill which we have to have. We need to be looking into making a decision which will be naturally making an impact on the decision of AI adoption, right? So how to prioritize, because we might have 3, 4, 5 different opportunities. How we will evaluate, right? That's the skill which is required in AI leaders. I should be in a position to analyze my process. That means I'm the domain expert. I understand what that particular work is. It may be sales marketing, it may be a supply chain, it could be a production, it could be a quality. Now, if I'm into that, because I understand that process well, I should be able to think in terms of redefining the process. So that's what transformation leader will be doing. Naturally, the governance, because I'm the one who is making decisions, I need to be taking the ownership of assigning the right ownership to people, what are the right guardrails for it. So I should be able to understand that. And then, of course, the change champion. That means I should be actually a people leader, not just the technology leader. So essentially, if you look at what the AI leaders, senior managers, and then mid managers getting into the top management have to be looking at, one is business acumen, second is the people leadership, third, are they able to think in terms of process more in the implementation mindset, but not the implementer, not the engineer, but implementation mindset. And then, of course, in the broader context of what should be my AI strategy. I cannot do everything in immediate. What should be my roadmap? That's what will make up a AI leader in time to come. So quickly looking at where the roadmap is, if you look at, we talked about all these stages, the real bottleneck, and this is from the data globally, stage 2, from the identification of the problem to the pilot, most of the projects are shelved. And the fundamental reasons are the one which we described, we discussed, including all those which the post result also gave. These are the problem area which we need to really look at. Now, if you look at most of these companies actually have some formal strategies, right? But then if you look at, still there is large amount of companies, large number of companies, actually they do not have any formal strategy. 40-45% people are not taking help of any expert or any mentor to build this strategy, right? And that's something which is not a very healthy sign. So what are the recommendations as we talk today? We would recommend start with the problem, not with the tool. Prioritize what is the business value which I'm going to get. And we talked about business value in terms of customers, in terms of revenue, cost, reputation, so on and so forth. Look at high impact use cases first. How we will look at the high impact use cases? Just recall that 6 dimensions on the scale of 1 to 5. Ask those questions If you ask those questions on those 6 dimensions and assign a score, you will know this is the problem to pick up first, right? This is the recommendation what we make. Build cross-functional ownership. Now, what is the cross-functional? Let me spend a couple of minutes on that. Say, example, you talk about a particular use case in supply chain or in sales marketing, operations, or project management. There are several different people working as a stakeholder, right? Now, when you're working across several different stakeholders, we need to demystify the complexities involved in the process flow, and then just see how that process flow can actually be redefined. That means I need to bring in those cross-functional teams into the entire chain. And once we bring them into the chain, how we will identify different ownership so that a good, impactful use case can be built. Now, that's one thing which certainly each of us has to look at very actively. And of course, upskill, because if I don't upskill myself to be an AI leader, these complexities will always remain around me and will find difficult to steer and navigate my own technical team, my process team, functional team, and naturally the chances of succeeding in AI adoption will become grim. And in fact, if you look at this is something which we found out, the first year of deployment itself, if you look at when people talk about AI agent, in the first year of deployment itself, a lot of executives started feeling that, look, I can possibly get the returns from it. Not necessarily they got it, but they started building the confidence. Why? Because they've gone through this rigorous journey, the self-learning, the learning around us with the team, and of course the technology to the extent required. So where do we go from here? It's not just about concept, it's about understanding the business framework, understanding what are the principles of building the right strategy. That means I don't need to go to some third-party consulting company and asking them to come and deploy the AI solution or buy a third-party AI product and start deploying it. Not that. I need to be building the strategy with help of mentors, with help of the right people who are advising us. And with help of those people, once I build a strategy, the picture will be a lot clearer to move ahead. But of course, I need to also build my own skill around that. I need to be thinking in the implementation domain, not learning the implementation, but I should be in the mindset of how, after all, these techniques will go into this solution. Now, that framework is something which will come from the implementation thinking, not the skill of algorithm. Governance, of course. Use cases, of course, it has to be grounded, and we talked enough about it. As I said, look out for right people who can help you to build strategy is what is needed. And naturally, if we are in this kind of strategic clarity in our mind, the chances of success directly start getting addressed. So this is what we had so far. Of course, this is a program of IIT Roorkee in collaboration with Zero Zeta. I think the people can look at the details, but essentially what this program helps us to achieve is identify the use cases, build a strategy around those use cases and broader function of the organization which you are responsible, addressing the foundational knowledge of AI to the level which a leadership should be covering, build those concepts around governance, get the nitty-gritties going, and of course, develop a solution as part of this whole initiative of the learning, the program, and take it forward. So these are the kind of thing which this program can offer. Again, business acumen, the people leadership, and the process thinking, all of it have to come together as success mantra for AI adoption. So this is where we end the session today. And I think we have 6 or 7 minutes. We can take any query, any question, and conclude the session today. And then look forward for the next session in the same journey, in the same series.
So there are a couple of questions in the Q&A. Let me go through it. So if an organization is open for adopting AI in its operation, is there any recipe book or suggestion which department it should begin with? And the second part is, should it choose one department or business function deep down or take a shallow approach?
No, certainly it has to be deep down approach. The shallow approach will yield not much. We talked about what are the use cases which are seen around. That is one way of looking into which area to look at, because the chances of success will be much higher because it has been done somewhere else. That is one way to look at it. Also, to combine this with another approach is in my own functions in my company, where I'm actually having these issues, where I'm having delays in the work, where I'm getting delays in any kind of decision making. Are we losing so much of human effort which is not needed? Are my good skilled people are tied down with something which they are much more worth than that? Uh, are we struggling in giving good experience to my customer? Are we not responding to them in time? If we start looking at those issues as well, alongside the application which are being done elsewhere, we will be able to come out with a good framework for our own organization. There is no ready-made solution to be available, but then this could be a good beginning, starting point.
The second one, how do regional, economic, regulatory, and cultural differences affect enterprise AI adoption in India as compared to regions like Europe and the Americas?
I mean, this is again quite a broad question to look at, but of course, it's very relevant question. So when we look at in India, there are broadly 2 or 3 different category of organizations. So one category is what we look at IT companies, which work with customers predominantly in the West. Then there is another set of companies which are global competency center GCCs, which are basically working with their principals in West countries, other countries, and then they have a team here. And the third one is all those companies which are building services or product for domestic and for the export market. Now, if you look at in all these three, there is no way we can build any system without understanding how the external world is working towards it. So, for example, if I'm working in IT companies, I need to think how my customers in West are going to use this system in that way. If I am building solutions and making some product for my own domestic market, but I'm importing quite a few things, I need to really understand what I'm importing from where, how to work with them, so on and so forth. So I would say this is very relevant question. But yes, the ecosystem in our country is a lot more complex because the options are a lot more, the overall opportunities are massive. So the scale is big, and because of that bigness, the point remains very relevant, but I would say it becomes even more challenging because we are working with almost everywhere around the globe. So that's the short answer I can look at right now.
Okay. There's another one. The executive program is for business leaders with zero coding, but automations with AI tools. So it's a clarification.
Yes, so the program naturally is focusing on building the AI leadership so that the executives can build a strong, robust roadmap, which is standing on very clear use cases for adoption. And they will be skilled on those specific techniques so that they can evaluate how complex that application is going to be, right? Now, that is where the entire program is built around. However, while doing all that, you also need to do some hands-on. And for doing the hands-on, any relevant tool will work. Tool is, after all, building on these foundations. So tool will be covered, but the focus is making you the AI strategist, the leader who can make right decisions, who can build the right plan and bring in the right projects into the funnel for higher chances of success. So all those nitty-gritties which any senior manager, mid manager has to grasp, has to be doing. And for that, he doesn't need to be doing any kind of coding, right? There is no software or coding which is required. You need to be using some software like a agent or like a Copilot or maybe like a Claude. Those are the tools, right? So you will be doing something based upon what you come out with, but then the broad focus is how to really grasp the entire foundation to the advanced concept so that I can make good sound strategy, build the right applications portfolio, evaluate which one to go for, and then of course execute.
Yeah. So hope that answers your question, Dibon. Uh, Another one, it's related to the course. Is campus immersion there? It is 1 or 2 days at the weekend. Vineet, you want to take that?
Yeah, so it will be there, and usually it is kept for 2 days. And if Professor Jha is there, I think he can elaborate more on that. But yes, this is 2 day immersion always kept at the campus. Staying and all that is taken care by the campus people in the campus, and rest is all managed in the session itself. So yes, it is there.
Okay. Can I assume agentic AI is covered? I saw agent system keyword in slides apart from AI ML.
Yes, it will be. It will be broadly covered, and it will be also covered as a concept as well as hands-on.
Okay. How many master classes with industry experts?
So industry experts, you can assume it to be in out of all the total session, nearly 35 or 30 to 35% will be by the industry expert, maybe up to 40 sometime. But I think anything over 30% will certainly be by industry experts across the domains, remaining by the faculties from IIT, led by Professor Pradeep Jha. They will be taking up the sessions.
Okay. How to assess the suitable AI? um, how to assess whether an AI tool is suitable for the business from a variety of AI LLMs and agents available in the market. So basically, how to find the right tool, choose the right tool.
Yeah, so it's a flowing river. The tools keep coming every alternate month. Some new tool is in the market. And I think that's a good thing because the tools are getting evolved, new and new features getting added. As long as we are able to understand the intuition of the system, what we talk about, and of course, a relevant, necessary concept, we will be able to figure out very quickly, is this tool good for me or not? If I'm doing work around a lot of documents, analysis of document, the data, which tool is running faster, which tool is not so expensive, can it be used same time by many people, can I share the finding with many people? These are like important criteria. So we will be able to evaluate which tool is good. A tool good today, there is no guarantee it will remain good even next month, right? Because more and more things are happening. But yes, you will be able to understand and learn how to assess a tool which is good for me. That will certainly be coming to you as a skill at the outcome.
Uh, for organizations just starting out, what is the best framework to prioritize these friction points? Should we focus first on fixing high frequency manual work or addressing high risk forecasting errors?
Yes, so I would say use that framework, 6 dimension, 5 grade value. Yes, repetitive work is one dimension, but then also club it with other dimensions as well. The dimension of revenue, the dimension of risk, the dimension of time to realize value, time to realize efficiency, the efficiency dimension. So if you look at not just the dimension of the repetitive work, other dimension as well, you will be able to assign a score and very mathematically in a very simple construct. You will know this use case has a score of 7, this is has a score of 9. I will go for 9, right? So the point in making is there is always an intuition, an instinct, which is good, but club it with this framework shared today, the McKinsey's and Gartner's framework, then you would be able to assign a number to. If someone asks you why you chosen this use case, then you can very convincingly answer. This use case was picked up because on these 6 dimensions, these were the different parameters which we used, and we found this to be a quicker win or rather quicker feasibility than this one. And that's something which should be a good guideline for you.
Okay. I think we come to the end of the questions, but I do see some raised hands, so I want to quickly check. Neera and Radha, do you have any questions?
Thank you. He answered my questions later to the course. So before that, I raised. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and yeah, to conclude the today's session. So, what is your next AI step? Right, we ran a poll, and 44% folks are saying they'll next step is to identify the potential use cases. Another 44% saying build a business case. So that's the majority of where the responses are going towards.
Okay, I think that's great. It's a very positive takeaway from the session, because that's what the entire focus was, how to move ahead from readiness to the adoption. And that's the most important thing, which I think people have got it. Continue to look for next session in the same series, and we'll go and address the next challenge. Thank you very much for being part of this session, and look forward to talk to you again. Goodbye.